South Africa is a problem. Okay, fine. Since you're all going to be super angry unless I do, let me rephrase that. South Africa presents a huge possible problem. But what could I possibly mean? The gang violence overrunning Cape Town? The extreme drought and water depletion? The escalating racial tensions threatening civil conflict and political destabilization? Well, that last one is definitely one of the bigger factors, though in reality you can just say all of it. But it's more about South Africa's seemingly inevitable inner turmoil and instability causing something else to become a problem. You see, when nations become unstable, and especially when actual internal conflict erupts within them, though I will pray it does not actually reach that point in South Africa, but when such things devolve within a nation, it tends to disrupt and often collapse their output of natural resources, if they are a natural resource supplier of any kind. Now, in plenty of cases, this wouldn't really cause that big of an issue. As you know, any one country's contribution to global resource supply of anything in particular is only ever usually a small or moderate percentage. But, that's not the case with South Africa. South Africa is a major, even primary supplier of too many things. Just to cover a few, the most important, more than a quarter, 26% of all the world's manganese is mined in South Africa. Manganese is a critical component added to the mix when making steel. You know, steel, that famous, might have heard of it, versatile metal that everything's built out of or reinforced with or held together by. Also, a critical component of steel, and especially stainless steel, is chromium, which South Africa is the global supplier of 52% of. Over half of the entire planet's supply, all coming out of South Africa. Now, if you watch any of my weekly energy and resource episodes, you'll have learned by now, or you might just already know, catalytic converters, those things on the underside of cars that detoxify the exhaust so it's not black poisonous smog, those require platinum group metals as their catalysts to detoxify the exhaust coming through them. Platinum group metals being a group that includes platinum, palladium, rhodium, iridium, osmium, and others, although the ones used in catalytic converters that work the best for those reactions are primarily platinum, palladium, and rhodium. Well, South Africa is the main source of these two to a much more extreme degree because of the Bushveld complex. Over a third, 37% of all the world's palladium comes from South Africa. Nearly 80% at 78 of the world's platinum comes from South Africa. And the third one that catalytic converters need, rhodium, South Africa supplies over 80% of, coming in at 82% of the entire global supply. Because this just gets better and better. And I'm assuming, since you're on some kind of device watching this, you like having internet and functional computers and electronic devices. Well, they depend on an exceptionally rare element called ruthenium, which South Africa is the source for 93% of for the whole world. You see where this is going now? Oh wait, let's throw in one more at least. Let's grab iridium. Very few people tend to know about iridium, but it is necessary for spark plugs. Yeah, you know those things that vehicles need to work. Vehicles of all kinds, even airplanes. Yes, aircraft even have spark plugs too. And it's also needed for the composition material of crucibles. You know, those giant smelting buckets carrying and mixing all the molten metal in the various mills and foundries around the world where we melt down, refine, and make every other metal. So, yeah, there's kind of a potential problem here, you don't say. Now, it wouldn't be if South Africa was doing all right, but they're not. They are stacking more and more problems onto the already flaming bonfire. They're dealing with escalating gang violence, especially in Cape Town, to the point of actually having to resort to sending in the military to try to deal with it. Not that it's even apparently done anything. Simmering resentment among the population over high unemployment rates, poverty, and a stagnating economy. Quickly erupting anti-immigrant violence, rising as sort of an outlet from that economic frustration, and surfacing in every form from looting to mob attacks and murder. And those escalating racial tensions sparking to life in the wake of recent things like the land redistribution proposals. And of course, also, as we mentioned at the beginning, the constant off and on water depletion risk, especially again for Cape Town, that if things ever actually went dry all the way down to zero, would then add in huge amounts of panicking desperation into the mix. So things aren't exactly looking to go in a good direction. And if South Africa wasn't South Africa, it may well have continued falling apart, sort of quietly into the night, so to speak, alone, like Burma or most of the Central Asian nations, and sort of be quietly left to fall apart if it weren't for that Bushveld complex. The risk of South Africa becoming politically unstable is rising, and thus with it, the potential for outgoing supply disruption is also rising. A quarter of all the world's manganese, over half of all the world's chromium, over a third of all the world's palladium, near 80% of all the world's platinum, over 80% of all the world's rhodium, 85% of all the world's iridium, and practically all, 93% of the whole world's ruthenium. The ability to make steel, the ability to make vehicles, the ability to make crucial components of the electronics on which we all depend. This isn't want. The world needs South Africa. And it needs a stable South Africa. But even more importantly, South Africans, all of you who might be watching who are from South Africa, deserve a stable South Africa. Now I'm far, far away up here in Alaska, but I'll pray all I can that things turn around for the better somehow. So, especially to those of you down there, may God be with you all, and I'll see everyone around next time.